A group of criminals killed a man. They flee in a van but are pursued by police. They escape from police when the group goes under a tunnel, where rocks fall and block the opening. However, it is revealed that the rocks were only a vision in the mind of the lead policeman. Back in the van, it is revealed that a girl named Callie, a member of the gang, has caused the vision. She is bleeding from her left nostril, and we see a tattoo marked 008 on her wrist. This is Stranger Things Seasons 2 now. Welcome back to Hawkins, Indiana. It's the 80s, so our boys are hanging out at an arcade. They're dealing with a huge crisis as Dustin's Dig Dug score has been beaten by somebody named Mad Max. But Will Byers dealing with a bigger problem. Will experiences an episode where he finds himself in the upside-down version of the arcade. He sees a large shadow monster. Will is taken by Joyce and Hopper to Hawkins' lab, where he is seen by Dr. Sam Owens, the new head scientist. A nice friendly doctor in charge. He's like, no more evil experiments. The next day at school, they meet a new student from California named Max Mayfield, who immediately captures the affection of Lucas and Dustin. Dustin believes she is Mad Max. At Hawkins High, Max's stepbrother Billy Hargrove arrives and begins to compete with Steve for the title of king. Will's mom Joyce Byers has met Samwise Gamgee, and they're having a thing. His name's Bob, and he's a really nice guy. Jonathan and Nancy have a huge crush on each other, but they're just friends because she's still dating Steve. Nancy and Steve have been having regular dinners with the Holland family following Barb's death. Nancy, who is still grieving Barb's death, learns that the Hollands, who are unaware Barb is dead, are selling their house to afford to pay an investigative journalist named Murray Bauman to find Barb. Nancy feels responsible and guilty. Murray Bauman has been bothering Chief Hopper. He has all sorts of theories like Russians and aliens, but he does have one lead that's pretty close. The mysterious buzzcut girl 11 disappeared last season after she killed the Demogorg. But where has she been? Later, Hopper goes to a cabin in the woods where it is revealed he lives there with 11, who is alive. Mike has been trying to contact 11 for 352 days in a row after her disappearance, though unsuccessful. Flashbacks show that after killing the Demogorgon, 11 turned up in the Upside Down. She escapes through a portal and goes to see Mike at the Wheeler house, but flees into the woods after seeing feds at the house. So she lived in the woods for a while. More flashbacks show that Hopper finds her, and then he took her to the cabin in the woods as a place for them to live. Back in the present, today is Halloween, and she wants to go trick-or-treating, but Hopper's like, no, you can't go out there because the feds are still looking for you. Hopper is called into a pumpkin patch after reports of rotting pumpkins. The boys go in as Ghostbusters, of course. No one else wore costumes today. Dustin and Lucas talk to Mad Max and invite her to come trick-or-treating with them. Nancy wants to tell the Hollands the truth, but is persuaded out of it by Steve. They attend a Halloween party where Nancy gets drunk and berates Steve, putting the blame for Barb's death on them and saying that she doesn't love him. Steve leaves, upset.
Dustin found a strange thing in his trash. He feeds it. He brings the pollywog to school, which he has now named D'Artagnan from the Three Musketeers novel. But Will remembers when he coughed up a little demagogue and baby slug. It is evolving super rapidly. Will describes his episodes, and the boys conclude Dart is from the Upside Down. So Mike goes to kill it, but it escapes.
Dustin finds Dart before the other guys. He hides him under the hat. He pretends he didn't find him. Mike in the gym gets into an argument with Max, as Mike is angry at Max because Lucas and Dustin want to bring her into the party. 11 leaves the cabin to look for Mike and interprets Mike's argument as flirting. She uses her powers to knock Max over and leaves. Will is in the Upside Down again, and this time when the Shadow Monster comes, Will assumes the stance, where he comes face to face with the Shadow Monster. Will follows Bob's advice and confronts the monster. He shouted and said, "I'm not afraid of you. You're not real." But the monster forces a tentacle down Will's throat. "Are you possessed?" "No, I'm still in control, but I might be a little bit possessed." "Well, you're real cold. How about a hot bath?" "No, he likes it cold." "Definitely a little possessed." Will can't really explain what's happening to him, but he begins drawing scribbles on multiple pages. Joyce calls in Hopper, and they find the scribbles line up, which form a network of vines. So they go lay them all around the house, and boom, it looks like the vines in the Upside Down. Hopper's like, "Vines? Pumpkins have vines." Hopper recognizes an area and leaves. Hopper goes to the pumpkin patch, where he digs a hole which leads to a tunnel system in the Upside Down. He becomes trapped and passes out. Will sees a vision of Hopper's state, but Joyce cannot figure out the meaning of the vision. Just then Bob comes, and she enlists Bob for help, as his nickname in high school was Bob the Brain. Bob is able to identify the tunnels as a map underneath Hawkins, so they find Hopper's hole and manage to save him. The Hawkins lab guys come to and burn the whole place, but then that sends Will into these crazy seizure spasms. Will know. Will is rushed to the lab, where he displays memory loss, unable to remember Bob or Hopper. Owen speculates that the Shadow Monster is like a virus that has infected Will, and that any damage to the tunnels might be lethal to him. Later at the cabin, 11 finds his research into her biological mother, Terry Eves, and attempts to contact her with her powers. But nothing, so she hitchhikes over there and meets her aunt and meets her mom, but unfortunately, as we remember from last season, she's not all there. Eleven is trying to communicate with her mom. She gets the whole backstory of how when she was born, Dr. Brenner, taken at birth, and Terry's attempts to rescue her before she was subjected to shock therapy. 11 finds there was another girl at the lab like her. Meanwhile, after Nancy and Steve are broken up, so she goes and hangs with John. She wants to confess to Barb's mom, but of course the feds are listening, so when Jonathan arrange a meeting with Barb's mother, but are caught by undercover lab agents. They are taken to the lab where Owen shows the two the gate to the Upside Down and admits Barb's death. He tells them they've been tapping phones to keep other governments from learning about the portal. When they are released, Nancy reveals she recorded the confession. Nancy and Jonathan go to the investigator Murray Bauman with the tape. Murray knows the public won't accept the story as is, with monsters, but suggests watering down the story. Murray and Nancy decide to change the story to say that Barb died from toxins from the lab. Murray sends the tape to the Chicago Sun-Times, where he was previously employed. At Dustin's house, he finds Dart has broken from his cage and ate his pet cat. Then he finds that Dart is a baby Demogorgon. Dustin lures Dart to his Strom cellar and traps him. He goes to the Wheelers' house to find any of the boys, even asking for Nancy, but none of them are there. On his way out, he runs into Steve, who is coming to apologize to Nancy. Dustin enlists Steve for help and tells him to get the bat of nails from last season. They attempt to kill Dart, but instead find his shed skin and a tunnel dug. Lucas with Max, she's super pissed that she's in the group, but being excluded from all the secret conversations. So he brings Max up to speed on everything with the Demogorg and the Upside Down, but she doesn't believe him. So when he finally answers his walkie, Dustin and Steve lure Dart to the junkyard and ask Lucas for help. He grabs Max, he's like, I'll go prove it to you right now. Later, they ready the junkyard to trap Dart. Dart appears at the junkyard with creatures identical to him, and the group learns that there are packs of them. The group hides in a bus, and Steve later attacks them with the bat, but the creatures all run away suddenly, and Steve speculates they are going somewhere. At the lab, they realize the portal was open, it was going down into the ground, and that's how the tunnels all got made. We gotta burn everything. But the doctors say it might kill the kid, Will, because he's got some sort of connection to the vines. Mike say, if you've got a shadow monster connection, maybe you can use that to tell us how to defeat him. And Will views pictures of the map taken by lab agents and points out a location that the shadow monster wants to avoid. That's where the big mother brain is. So Omen send in a team to investigate, but there's nothing. But the pack attacks the team and enters the lab. They realize that the monster has been manipulating Will. Not the other way, he's led them into a trap. That's where all the demo dogs were going, so they come down there and kill them all, and now they're coming up into the lab. Meanwhile, Eleven uses her powers to track her to Chicago in search of the girl in Terry's memories, named 8, or Callie. The two connect where Callie shows Eleven her powers. Her powers aren't physical, she can do mental illusions, inside people's heads. She explains to Eleven that her gang is attempting to kill the lab scientists who worked under Brenner for what they did to her, and introduces Eleven to the group. How strong are your powers? Can you move this train? Callie tells Eleven to channel her anger, which strengthens her powers. It works. Eleven's real strong, pulls the train, and she like the dark side? The group goes to the home of a lab worker who performs shock therapy on Terry, who claims Brenner is alive. Eleven decides not to kill him after learning he has kids, and the gang is forced to flee. Eleven has a vision of Mike and Hopper in grave danger at the lab, and she have to go back to my Hawkins friends, leaving her sister.
And leaves back to Hawkins. Back at the lab, the pack of demodogs overwhelm the lab, killing many of the workers. Will's still spying for the shadow monster, so Mike is able to convince Joyce to tranquilize Will. But the power goes out, and Bob, knowing how to reset the power, volunteers to do so. Bob successfully activates the power, and Owen stays behind in the room to guide out the group. Mike, Will, Hopper, and Joyce are able to escape to the lobby. Owen stay behind and guide them using the security cameras. But Bob's coming from the other direction, and he gets blocked by a demo dog, so he goes, hides in the closet, and it's all fine until he comes out and the broom hits the ground fly. So he runs out of there and makes it to the lobby, stops for a romantic gaze with Joyce, just long enough for a demo dog to tackle him. Nancy and Jonathan have arrived at the lab and encounter Steve, Dustin, Lucas, and Max, who have followed the screams of the pack to the lab. And Bob dies. They go to the buyer's house. They go to the Dungeons & Dragons manual for answers, find the Mind Flayer, which, like the Shadow Monster, controls the minds of its minions. They figure the Mind Flayer is possessing all the demigods, so if they kill it, they'll all die too. Mike, who previously deduced that the Shadow Monster is using Will like a spy, tells the group, who decide to remodel the tool shed so Will doesn't know where he is so the Shadow Monster cannot spy. Will awakens, where Joyce, Jonathan, and Mike share their fondest memories of Will in an attempt to get him to snap out of it. Will doesn't respond vocally, but taps out a message in Morse code, which reads, "Close gate." Unfortunately, just then the phone rings, and it's got a distinctive ringtone, so Will realizes he's at his house, so that means the demon dogs are coming. As the pack moves in, the group barricades themselves in the buyer's house. Armed, but when the demo dog busts in, it's already dead. What? Who's coming in? It's 11, who has returned to Hawkins. Mike and 11 get emotional to see each other alive after a year and embrace together. And she meets Max, but she's not liked. They fill her in on the situation. She say, I think I have the power. I can close the gate. But they realize a problem. If they close the portal, it may also kill Will. Joyce remembers something Will said about the monster in the lab. He likes it cold, so she decides to burn the monster out. So they're bringing Will up to the he like cold, so turn up the heat. Boom, blast him with everything, and it works. The shaft monster comes flying out of his mouth and dissipates. Hopper and 11 go to the lab to close the gate. Before leaving, 11 promises Mike that he will not lose her again. Mike, concerned about 11, convinces the group to burn the tendrils at the tunnels to distract the Demodogs from attacking Hopper and 11. But Steve rebuffs the plan and refuses. He says, I was charged to keep you guys safe. We're not going off on any suicide mission. But just then, Max's brother Billy shows up. At Billy's house, his abusive father reprimands him for losing track of Max. His dad roughs him up and sends him to find her. His search takes him to the Wheeler house, where Mrs. Wheeler gives Joyce's address. He goes there, where after a tense confrontation with Steve, goes inside. After seeing Max with Lucas still, Billy grabs Lucas, but Steve attacks Billy and they have a fist fight. Billy knocks Steve unconscious, but continues to punch him. Max grabs the syringe Mike brought from the hospital and injects Billy with it, and threatens him into obedience with a nail bat. Max steals Billy's keys. Steve awakens in Billy's car, where Max drives the group to the tunnels. Steve and the kids enter, where they cover the heart of the tunnels in gas and ignite it. Since the tunnel is ignited, the Demodogs become distracted and return to the tunnel, leaving the lab unguarded, and so Hopper and 11 enters the gate without facing any of them. Meanwhile, the kids go to leave, but encounters Dart. However, Dustin is able to call him down, and the group escapes. When 11 tries to close the gate, the Mind Flayer senses her strength and sends the Demodogs to attack her. As Hopper defends 11 from the swarming Demodogs, 11 is able to channel her anger and closes the gate, killing the remaining monsters in the process. A month later, the lab has been shut down by the government following the publication of Nancy's tape. The Hollands hold a proper funeral for Barb. Owens meets with Hopper in a bar, where he gives Hopper a forged birth certificate listing him as the father of Jane Hopper, 11. Steve drives Dustin to the Snowball, the annual Hawkins Middle Winter Dance, where he meets with the party. A slow dance starts and Will is asked to dance. Lucas asks Max to dance. Dustin asks multiple girls to dance but is rejected. Nancy, who is serving punch at the dance, sees Dustin alone and upset and dances with him. Outside, Joyce talks with Hopper. 11 shows up, where she dances with Mike. The students enjoy themselves at the dance, unaware that the shadow monster is still alive, towering over the school in the Upside Down. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you in the next video.